Hello and welcome back to the Ohio SBDC Progress Not Panic 2020 video series. I'm your host Kevin Hammond of the Ohio SBDC at Columbus State Community College. And today we're going to have an expert interview video with Thalia Amador. Thalia is the Economic Development Specialist for the U.S. Small Business Administration, otherwise known as SBA, and she's out of the Columbus District Office here in Central Ohio. In her role, she provides effective referrals and other assistance to help small businesses start, grow, and expand, as well as recover. And she additionally does outreach for the SBA programs and services to the Hispanic community here in the Columbus and Central Ohio area. So we're going to join Thalia on this video, so let's all welcome Thalia. So we're here today with Thalia from back again here from the SBA, and she's going to talk to us about a little bit about PPP forgiveness. So Thalia, we've heard a lot about the PPP program over the past few months and so forth, and a lot of the ins and outs. And the forgiveness process is now starting to become kind of paramount. And just kind of wondering from you, what kind of guidance you can give a lot of our clients that are out there on the forgiveness process overall.
Well, thank you, Kevin, and everybody for being with us today. Let me talk to you a little bit about what that process looks like. First of all, keep in mind that the process is going to all go through your lender, right? So it's very important that you go back to closing documents and you look at who that lender is, right? Who gave you that PPP money, right? If it was Chase, Huntington, or your credit union, or if you did through like PayPal, whoever provided you with that loan, that's who you're gonna reach out to first, right? So know who your lender is that gave you the money, because that's where your process starts. You're gonna start with the application, right? The application is available on our website, sba.gov. It's the form, I wrote it down, 3508 easy or the complete form 3508.
Okay.
And so you want to complete that application, but again, you want to contact your bank and get to know if they want you to print out the form that we have available online. Some banks may choose to create their own portal and have you fill out online, and that's okay too. So it's either our SBA form or an equivalent that your bank is going to provide to you. And that's why it's important to contact your bank. So you want to first complete that application. You want to submit that application within 10 months from the end of your covered period. So if your covered period ended May 1st, so you have 10 months from the day that your covered period ended to submit your application with supporting documentation, okay? Part of that documentation is going to be your taxes, your 2019 1040 taxes, and proof of the payments or invoices that you submitted or that you used the funds for. Step number 3, the lender has 60 days from the day that you submit the application to them. They have 60 days to review the documentation, review the application, make sure that the calculations done are correct, and then they submit it to the SBA portal, okay? From that time, once the bank reviews it, then they submit it to SBA. SBA receives your application. From that date, SBA has 90 days. So 90 days to review the application submitted by your lender and provide you with a approval or denial, right? And then we submit that information through that same portal to your lender. It is your lender's responsibility to provide you with that response, whatever our approval or denial is. There is room for appeals. Most appeals or most denials happen because we have incomplete paperwork. So please ensure or be sure to submit all the documentation. The majority of our denials come from incomplete or inconclusive, documentation.
Okay.
And yes, you can, submit for appeal. It's just gonna make the process even longer.
Okay.
And in essence, that is the process. So it's going to be a little bit of a lengthy process. The sooner you submit your application, obviously, the sooner you're going to go through that process.
Okay.
And because it's a little bit more spaced out, we're not going to see those huge outbursts like we did with the application. So it will be a little bit, we're hoping that although those are the timelines, that maybe you get it in 2-3 days or in 10 days, or we don't know. We just know that that is the allotted maximum time for each part of the process.
Okay. So if I could just review those dates, so they have as much as 10 months from their date that what's it called, the date that the application time period, coverage period ended, to submit
From the time the cover period ends.
10 months, and then
Yes.
the lender has 60 days to respond to what you send them. And then from there, the lender has 90 days to review, or the SBA gets, then it goes to the SBA, and
The SBA has 90 days.
Okay.
Yeah, so the borrower has 10 months to submit. The lender has 60 days to review and submit to SBA. SBA has 90 days to review and submit to the lender.
Okay.
And then the lender submits the response to the borrower. So it's very important to notice that all the information is going to come from the lender, not from the SBA.
Okay. And then for the customer, for the clients, probably a big thing that they need to be focused on is keeping great records. Keeping track of everything.
Absolutely. So, and not just keeping great records to submit to the bank, you also have to know that you have to keep your records for up to 6 years. So SBA has up to 6 years to come back and do any audits on that paperwork. So you want to ensure that you have great records, that you keep those records for 6 years.
Okay, good. Okay, so this is a time when maybe some businesses aren't maybe keeping as good of records as they could. This is a time they really got to make sure they're keeping those great records. If they need to get an accountant or something, they should definitely do that. But either way, that's going to be key for them to be able to get this forgiveness, and for the lender to be able to process it, and also for the SBA to be able to do their work too.
That's correct.
Great. Okay. So there's one question I tend to get a lot, at least especially recently from clients who've gotten the PPE, and and they're kind of thinking ahead about forgiveness, and they wonder about how do they separate between paid cost and incurred cost. That can be confusing to a lot of our businesses.
Right. So an example would be if your cover period is 8 weeks, right? And it starts April 1st, you have 8 weeks from April 1st. So ends in May 30th, right? That's your 8-week period, April 1st to May 30th. Any bills or payroll costs that you paid during April 1st and May 31st are covered for forgiveness, right? That's easy. You pay them during that covered period. PPP forgiveness also allows for incurred bills, meaning if you receive a bill for your electricity and the bill's date was before that period, right? It was for March, right? And you receive it in April. That bill was actually incurred before your cover period. But because you paid it during the cover period, it will also be allowed, right? Same thing would be to cover on the back end of it. If you have the same bill, or if you have payroll that was incurred during the cover period, but because your payroll cycle every 2 weeks, your cover period ends May 31st, but your pay period payment is June 2nd, because it was incurred during the cover period, it will also be allowed for forgiveness. So both paid and incurred during that covered period are eligible for forgiveness.
Okay. Yeah, that makes a lot more sense. Yeah, I think that's definitely clear to me, and probably clearer than what I've told clients. So that helps me too. It helps, helps other folks like me working with these businesses. So that's great.
Right.
What any other parts of the forgiveness process that we should go over, and we can talk about some of the date changes and so forth here in a little bit. But any other process things we should think about? I think you went over them pretty well. But
Yeah, so there's just a couple of things that I would like to remind, individuals. There were so many changes throughout the period. Remember, there are 2 covered periods. There's the 8-week original period, and loans after June 5th were issued after June 5th automatically have the 24 pay period, or 24 weeks covered period, right? So you can do 8 or 24th. Remember also that the initial payroll percentage was 75%, and it was lowered to 60%, right? So we're looking at a 60% minimum on payroll, or of the fund being used for payroll. And it's very important that everybody knows that the cover period cannot exceed beyond December 31st of 2020. That is an absolute. So if you're 24 weeks, it should end, by that week anyways, but you cannot exceed any covered period past December 31st of 2020.
okay.
That is on the guidelines or rules. Also remember that borrowers, especially for those who had weren't able to rehire employees because they either had a job or didn't want to come back or whatever it is. So if you want to make sure that you as borrower or employer are required to let your unemployment office know of any employees that rejected your rehire offer.
Okay.
And you have 30 days to provide that letter or notification to Office of Unemployment. Okay, so that is something that I know it's kind of gets or has gotten a little bit lost through all those things, but it is the employer's responsibility to inform unemployment office of those employees who did not want to return when you were asked, or when you asked them to return back to their jobs. Okay. And another information that gets kind of confused and got lost as well is the EIDL advance. If you received EIDL advance, it will be deducted from your PPP forgiveness. An example of that is if you received a $100,000 loan from PPP and you also received the maximum $1,000 advance, which is that grant that was issued through the EIDL application, it will be deducted. So, right, if you have both, you will deduct that $10,000 from that $100,000 PPP loan, meaning you will be eligible for a $90,000 forgiveness. So EIDL advances are deducted from your PPP forgiveness application. And there's also 2 different maturity dates for your loans. All applications or every loan that was approved prior to June 5th, they're on a 2-year maturity, and all obviously loans that were approved after June 5th are on that 5-year maturity loan.
Okay.
And that information is also going to be in your closing documents.
Okay.
And as you know, the portal for PPP forgiveness was available or opened up August 10th. So you are now eligible to start through this entire PPP forgiveness process. The portal is open, and again, all of the documentation and how to submit it is going to go through your lender.
Okay. So it's open now, and then even though they have 10 months, probably better for a lot of them to start sooner than later. If we wait till that last minute, it's going to be a time crunch, and
Correct.
tend to procrastinate. That's just our nature a lot of times. So, right. Yeah.
Yeah.
Good. Okay.
Absolutely. So that's what we got. Just a little bit of those reminders of what's important, what to look for. That 60% minimum is what they're looking on that compensation or payroll cost that's used. And as we mentioned before, documentation is key, right? Being able to prove all the documentation is going to be very important.
Okay, great. And I've heard that to do the calculations, that's not something SBA does. That's where they're going to their bank or working with someone like us to help the calculations. SBA is not. That's not what you guys are supposed to be working on. Is doing those calculations for the clients. Is that right?
That is correct. We cannot work on the details of your calculations. That is where resource partners such as the SBDC, your SCORE chapters, your women's business centers, your BOX, all of those resource partners are going to be there available to help you with that process. There's also a lot of calculators, online calculators. Many of your lenders have already uploaded a calculator in their website. So again, your main source should be your lender, and many of them are making that process easier by adding those calculators where you're already just entering that information, they're calculating that for you.
Good. Okay. Yeah. So it sounds like an easy process, and I think now that the clients know where to go and then where not to go, so they're not going to go SBA for calculations, they're going to go to their lender or entrepreneur support organizations like SBDC and a lot of the other great ones that are around Central Ohio to help out with those kind of things. Great.
Right.
Very good. Great. This is great information here. Yeah. I mean, I learned a few new things too. This, it's been a great program. I know, it was a little bit challenging in the beginning, but this was a huge, huge deal to get this done. I think, you guys, the Columbus office, you guys have been great helping the entrepreneur support organizations around town, and we really appreciate your partnership.
Thank you. We definitely appreciate everybody's, support. We're here for small businesses, and we're really here to make it easier for all of you. All of our information on PPP forgiveness is always up to date and available in our website. That is the best resource that you have. That all of the information is always available and up to date in our website.
Okay.
So, questions, there's a lot of the frequently asked questions sections of the PPP forgiveness. It gives you a lot of detailed examples that you can use, as a guidance. So definitely use all of those resources that are already there for you. And again, there's always also the resource partners like the SBDC that's there to, give that extra assistance for small businesses.
Mm-hmm. That's what we do. It takes all of these great organizations and everything to help as many businesses right now that are struggling, and that's what's the teamwork I think has just been great in Ohio, Central Ohio, especially. So this has been great. So we want to thank you, Thalia, for being here again today. These videos have been real informative. I know I've gotten a lot of feedback from different clients and so forth that have watched them, and I think they become more and more important as time goes on. So once again, we want to thank Thalia Amador from SBA for being here today, and you can reach out to Thalia if you need to reach her directly at her email address up here. And also we'll in her phone number, and the website is sba.gov, and there's a Columbus link there as well. And we'll have all this information in the video description as well as more information about Thalia. So once again, Thalia, thank you for being here today.
Thank you, Kevin, and thank you everybody for watching this video.